We're exploring the world of immersive production in DaVinci Resolve for the Apple Vision Pro. If you haven't already, please go watch the other videos in this series. This episode is special because we're going to be talking with James Willett, a professional colorist who has been working with DaVinci Resolve for some 15 years across numerous disciplines. We did some work to prepare the timeline for James. Here's the DRT that we've created for you. Hopefully you like how tidy we have made the timeline. So we have grouped the scenes by color, and then you can see the disabled tracks. Well, that's because on track 1, we actually have fusion effects there. On the disabled track, it's just a duplication, but without the effects applied to it. You might be wondering why we've duplicated and stripped all the effects from those fusion clips.
We would like the best performance we could get hold of, and having a load of fusion work on a clip is going to bog things down a bit, particularly in the immersive world. We're talking 2x8K, it's a lot of media. What this means is that we can switch on V4 and V5 actually, and we just switch off V1 and 2, and anything that had fusion work on has just been wiped from the timeline with regards to it being visible in the color page. It's still on the timeline, but the color page is not looking for it, and it means we can work quite happily on the rushes, and then the fusion stuff can be put back on afterwards. However, you don't really need to think about it being put back on afterwards. By default, Resolve will use what's called a local grade.
Quick interruption. If you want to learn more about local and remote grades, go watch our video. There's a link in the description.
However, if we go into remote mode, because we've got those clips duplicated, because Leon has worked on V1 down here with fusion, and he's duped it up and removed the fusion work, I can now grade this clip, and that will automatically be on the clip below because it's in remote. So wherever that clip appears in the timeline, the same grade will be there. So you only have to grade it once.
Now that's super cool. James has the option of grading on our fusion compositions, or if performance is an issue, on the rushes without fusion work. But because he is working on remote grades, the same grade will automatically get applied to both. Of course, there are other workflows. For example, we could pre-render our fusion comps before the color grade, but we really like this because we're not locked into a rigid workflow where picture lock is needed before color. Here's some information about James' setup. He is using node-based CST color management. That approach is particularly helpful for delivering Apple Immersive Video because of its unusual 108 nit delivery requirements. Like many colorists, he's using a fixed node tree. Each shot will have unique needs, but by using a common node tree that's set up to handle any situation, it allows a colorist to be organized and efficient in their grading. A great example James gave was making an adjustment to a node on one shot and being able to very quickly apply that to other shots in the timeline using the ripple grade functionality. On node 3, James color manages from the camera's color space into his working color space. On node 30, he color manages from that working color space into P32100, a HDR standard. All of the color grading will happen in between node 3 and node 30, but there's 2 more important steps required to be able to deliver to the Vision Pro. On node 31, he trims the image from 1000 nits down to 250 nits. On node 32, he trims once more all the way down to 108 nits. So what's going on there? Why does he have these 2 further trims?
The rationale behind that, when we view it at 250 on our grade monitor, in a controlled grading environment, perceptually, when you pop your Vision Pro on, sort of approximates the idea of 108 when it's that close to your face. These nodes you can switch on and off as needed. So when you come to monitor in the Vision Pro or deliver, that 108 nit node will be enabled.
It makes sense that proximity will impact how bright 108 nits feels. It's just like earphones. Stick them in your ears and they will sound very loud. Pop them on your desk though, and you might not even hear them. This was really cool to see demonstrated. James enabled streaming to the Vision Pro and had me look at the image in the headset and then take the headset off and look at his monitor. And they looked within reason identical. James really has his suite dialed in. James uses Knob Omniscope, but he showed us how he'd configure his scopes if he was using just Resolve. He had a really cool trick using the low and high reference levels for 108 and 250 nits that helps him understand the requirements for Vision Pro.
We got a shot here where we've got quite a bit of shadow, with you walking up the ladder, front of shot here, and also where the sun is at the back of the shot.
That's a lot of dynamic range. This is a common problem when you have a 180-degree lens. To avoid seeing the camera's shadow, you'll often end up pointing towards the sun.
I'm going to jump to node 6. Now, this is an example of where I'm not using nodes. This is because it's nice to keep some sort of in reserve. You might want to dive back and do a little correction. And node 6 in this tree tends to be where I do my primary balance. And that leaves me a couple here in case I need to make any adjustments before it. So if we go to node 6 and we look to balance the shot, bring the exposure down a little bit, you can already see that sky is really sort of coming into its own. So let's just go ahead onto our next node and bring some light into this lower area of the shot. Now we could do it in a number of ways, but let's just go with a simple power window. Shape that up, bring it down here, and we want to keep it pretty soft. It's like any grading, you don't want to look like you've done something. So we're just going to feed a little bit of light in to this lower portion of the shot.
This is a great point to mention some caveats. Fine masks create issues when combined with the parallax between each eye. To circumvent that, you might need to create unique masks for each eye, or soften the edge of the mask. The circular window James is using to address the foreground exposure is so soft that they won't cause any issues. So far, is your thinking and approach similar to working with 2D?
Yeah, it is. It's just a little bit more considered. You think, oh, you know, do I need to do this? And in this shot, because we've got so much of a disparity between foreground and background, I feel that we can give ourselves license to kind of do this. And I mean, that's only a very quick, subtle correction that we've popped in there. However, what's probably good is for you to have just an initial look at this in the Vision Pro.
Now it's time to get the Vision Pro on. I'm going to open the Apple Immersive Video utility, and James will enable Stream to Vision OS. I think it's worth letting this play out and showing you what the interaction between someone in a headset and a colorist can be like. Can you please show me how it looked before we added the power window?
Yeah, of course I can. So if we go back to that and we switch that off.
And now enable it, please.
There you go.
It feels very natural. And we've been able to see more detail here in the foreground.
Is it enough, or do you want to come up a bit more, or does it feel about right?
So I think we should bring it up a little bit more, because the climber that's coming behind me, his black trousers are a little bit, I feel like being lost a little.
And this is the beauty of it. I can keep going here in the comfort of my grade suite whilst you're inside the Vision Pro. And because I know what it looks like, because we've tried it with the 108 node, with the 108 nit node, and I've had the Vision Pro on previously. I know what to expect.
James spent more time finessing that shot. His goal was to reduce the dynamic range in the scene, but to do so while preserving that realistic relationship between shade and sunlight that you'd feel if you were there in person.
This entire series of videos is sponsored by Audiio, where with our discount code, you can get 70% off an entire year of royalty-free music. We use Audiio for all of our music. I'd like to highlight a genuinely useful feature, and that is their phone app. The homepage features new artists and playlists. That's a great place to start if you don't know what you're looking for yet. If you're out and about, when you've got time to kill, instead of listening to the music you already know, you can explore Audiio's library and start building ideas for your next edit. If you're looking for something specific, head to search. You can do all the normal stuff like search through song titles, artists, and keywords, or you can hit this button in the middle. This is Hands AI. It understands the music in Audiio's library. You can either describe the kind of song you're looking for or describe the kind of video you're looking to make. Either way, when you find songs you like, mark them as a favorite. Now when you sit down to start editing, instead of starting from zero, you're already ahead. You can get an entire year of Audiio Pro for just $60 using our discount code in the description.
We're moving on to the helicopter scene. Like other shots, there's a great deal of dynamic range. You have the dark interior and the brilliant white glacier outside. The detail preserved in the image is testament to the camera's incredible 16 stops of dynamic range.
I have used a key here as a bit of a test to see how I could get on with it. And what I did was actually just pull a very, very clean Luma key. If we look at the Resolve GUI, the qualifier, which is an HSL qualifier using hue, saturation, and luminance, it's only using the luminance portion of the qualifier to pull this key. So what we've done is we've sampled the environment outside, like so. And then we've just refined the key using the matte finesse tools here, just to tidy it up a little bit, to give us a very soft and smooth key that we can now use. Why, you may ask, am I using these nodes over here? These are just a load of nodes I keep, labeled 36 through 41 on this particular node tree, to use for keys and things outside of the node pipeline that I don't want to get kind of tangled up with. So I can pull my key here and then using the alpha channel, pump it into these nodes here to then use it. So pulling that into node 7, you can now see that where the image is white, I can start to affect it, and where it's black, it won't. And I've got another node here where I've got the inverse of that, so I can affect the outside and not the inside. And I think this is where we can start to really look to bring up the inside of the helicopter, but not too much. Enough to get a feeling of kind of detail and life in there without going too far. And there's the before and after, just very quickly, without affecting our environment outside. Now, our environment outside might need a little tweak, nothing wrong with that. Keep it simple, just a very simple lift gamma gain adjustment. Just to bring a bit of, if you look at the mountains there, just a little pop, but nothing too crazy.
Excellent. So what are we going to do to tackle the panels on the top of the helicopter?
The panels that you've lovingly called aquariums.
Yes. James is going to use a power window and some secondary grading tools to address the tint on these windows. As mentioned previously, the mask is soft enough not to cause stereo issues.
I just brought the level up a little bit there. Took a bit of saturation out generally, and then I went to my color warper here using the hue saturation, and we can see here, if we just hover over the image, that we're in this sort of blue cyan-y area. So I reckon if we grab that there and just wind it over there a little bit, take that one and we wind that over too, and then just drop the saturation a little bit. Very quickly, we've just taken a little bit of the sort of almost pushed look out of it. And it'll be because of the coating on the glass, you know, it's through no fault of anyone. It's just the way the helicopter glass would have been coated.
At this point, James had me put the Vision Pro back on so he could audition his change on and off. Can you please go before the grade and now after?
So we'll switch that off. That's before.
Oh, no, it's horrible. No.
And then we just put the adjustment back on.
Yeah, that's far more natural.
Happy client.
Well, because you're actually getting more detail. You can see the mountains and the clouds clearer in the sky panels. Remember that James's color suite is so well configured, you can pop the headset on and off, and his monitor looked identical to the image I see in the Vision Pro. However, you still have a different reaction to the image in the headset. James explained how he deals with that.
You've got to remember that when you put that headset on, you might feel the need to tweak it. So in my node tree, I have a node just labeled up VP trim. So if I had the headset on, you had the headset on, you go, actually, yeah, no, overall we're pretty good, but actually maybe just knock it down a tad. We can do that in there, and that allows us to, one, know what the adjustment was. So if we want to tweak it or switch it on and off, we know how much we've done when in the Vision Pro. And then we can sort of take it from there. So it's nice to keep it separate from the main correction.
That's so smart. Keeping those VP trims isolated in a downstream node stops them from affecting other parts of your grade, like qualifications. And it makes it easier to see patterns in the way you grade for VP, or to remove those adjustments if needed. Finally, James reflected on the experience of grading Apple Immersive Video.
I think this project is very much about being there, being in the environment. Not like a complete new style on the shot. You're working with what's there. And I think you're finessing. There will be some problems, but I think a big takeaway is focusing on this particular project is keep it natural, keep it as if you were there. You want to try and get that image across to, for pardon the pun, immerse someone in the image. You don't want to feel like it's disconnected by imparting too much of a style on it. If you're used to dealing with Blackmagic files, Blackmagic RAW files in 2D, I think it's not a massive leap to be dealing with this, other than what we were saying about storage and the amount of media you've got, and the fact that you're dealing with two 8K images, one per eye. So I think as long as you're ready for that, then it's going to open up, quite a lot of opportunities, hopefully, for people to shoot some really interesting content.
We really appreciated James' skill, professionalism, and seeing his approach to grading. He doesn't just consider the image in isolation, he considers how all the other creative tools, like Audiio, will affect the audience, and then creates his color grade in context. A big thank you to James for sharing his knowledge and letting us watch over his shoulder.